There's a battle on our doorstep, and that is the fight between the wild man Jiri Prochazka and the classically trained, perfect technical kickboxer Alex Pereira. We're 5 days away from the most highly anticipated fight of the year for me, and I'm going to give my breakdown and prediction. Guys, I've been saying Alex Pereira, how can I go against him? All right, when we're talking about the best strikers in MMA, I'm always putting him at the top of the heap, listing him in the top 3. Jiri Prochazka, he's never really in the same kind of conversation. He's sloppy, he's wild, he gets hit all the time. People don't give him the same respect. But after rewatching every single one of their UFC fights, and some fights outside of the UFC that they've had as well, I cannot unsee Jiri Prochazka beating Alex Pereira and presenting an issue to Pereira that's just so unbelievably difficult for his style to solve. And because of that, I'm picking Jiri Prochazka to finish Alex Pereira at UFC 295. Once again, this isn't just a really confident pick. It's risky. I could totally regret this one. But I just think that Alex Pereira has a hole in his game that Jiri Prochazka can exploit. And I'm fully aware of the power that Alex possesses and how amazing his technique is. He doesn't telegraph his strikes. He's super high level. But I think this is going to be a barn burner. I think it's going to be a scrap. And the theme of this is going to be, man, Alex Pereira's looking to plant. Okay? He loves to plant his feet. He loves to throw. He loves to pick people apart in this back and forth, tit for tat, clean kickboxing battle. And Jiri Prochazka's not looking to bring his gardening tools. Okay? No. I think he's looking to bulldoze him, all right? And that is moving forward, fighting downhill, throwing long piece combinations, 4 or 5 piece combos, whereas Alex Pereira in that department, when he's put on the back foot, he doesn't seem to have a lethal answer for it. And I'm talking about when we're thinking about the times that Alex Pereira knocks people out, that's when he's planting his feet. That's when he's moving forward on guys, pressuring them up against the cage. But when guys put him on the back foot and start throwing on him, all right, mid-combination, I don't see Alex Pereira with an answer for that that's going to be all too lethal for Jiri Prochazka. And because of it, I think that the unorthodox style of Jiri, the kitchen sink that's going to be coming in Alex Pereira's way, is going to overload his senses, and it's going to make it almost impossible for Pereira to do what he does best, and that's to kickbox and to set things up. And Jiri never accepts being put on the back foot. He just doesn't, man. He makes it so difficult for anyone to get settled. And I think the main reason why I've been saying this is because, once again, Pereira loves a nice, good old-fashioned kickboxing fight where people are willing to go tit for tat, where people are resetting, right? There's usually like this dance, this back and forth. We're going to strike, you're going to throw your combination, I'm going to throw my combination, we're going to reset, and we're going to go back to work. Jiri doesn't do that shit, man. He just fights downhill. He's a fucking avalanche in there. And every single time people put Pereira on the back foot, they let him off the hook. And what I mean by that is when Jan Blachowicz was fighting Alex Pereira, he was able to land really good combinations on Alex. Like, he was able to move forward and land 3, 4, 5-piece combinations on Pereira in their fight. It's just that as soon as he was done, he would almost sort of like nod and say, all right, let me go back a range and let me just stay safe because now Pereira's going to come at me. But Jiri, when he moves forward and he throws these combinations, and we're not just talking about 3, 4-piece combos, Jiri will literally run at guys, throwing 10-piece combinations with an 80-inch reach, which is a freaky long reach for the 205-pound division, with ridiculous power, and he never lets people off the hook, man, because in between those combos, whereas a guy like Jan Blachowicz or a guy like Bruno Silva, who have given Alex Pereira his toughest fights, toughest striking battles in the UFC, will kind of reset and wait or rest 20 seconds and 30 seconds. That's where Alex Pereira starts picking them apart and investing in the legs. Jiri Prochazka, his version of resetting is front kicks to the body, low kicks. He's always working. He doesn't let people get set. He doesn't let people get into a rhythm. Again, we talk about guys that have given Alex Pereira issues. And I didn't bring up Israel Adesanya. Israel Adesanya obviously knocked out Alex Pereira earlier this year. But outside of the KO, I actually think that matchup between Pereira and Izzy is tailored for a guy like Pereira. It's a comfortable fight. Izzy's not a guy that's constantly bombarding you with information, that's overloading your senses. Izzy's a guy that's going out there, that's going with a leg kick. Let's go with a body kick. Jab. Move back, circle out at range. Let's go back to the leg kick. Let's go with a body kick. And another jab. Izzy, I'm not saying he's all that predictable because he can mix it up. He's got good shot selection. But it's a more tit for tat, by the book kind of striking approach. And Jiri Prochazka just doesn't let people settle in. He doesn't let people off the hook. He's always working. He's always moving forward, fighting downhill. And he stands his ground. And when he stands his ground, that's when he's throwing his long, rangy attacks. That's actually when I see Jiri Prochazka with good head movement as well. People clown Jiri Prochazka's head movement. He gets hit a lot when he's moving forward. He gets countered hard when he's throwing his punches. But when he's out at range, he actually does have a great eye, man. He's got a really good eye out there. And at times, I see Jiri Prochazka slipping punches like he's in the Matrix. I really do. It's just that he gets cracked hard by guys that are willing to be on the back foot, that are getting punished, and will crack him right back. And Pereira, he doesn't do a great job at countering people when they're throwing on him. Like, he'll catch people when they're coming in, when they're closing the distance, when they're flinching at him, they're walking him down a little bit, but they're not necessarily throwing a combo. He is going to be able to hit Jiri a lot, because it's not like Jiri doesn't get hit. He does get hit. It's just that he kind of gets hit on his terms, if that makes sense. And that's an exhausting style of fight against a guy like Jiri that never lets you off the hook, because essentially you're fighting a fight that's so foreign to you. It's totally uncomfortable. And I think that this is going to be so draining for Alex Pereira. And we also got to talk about the injury, because a lot of people are mentioning this injury of Jiri Prochazka, the shoulder injury. And from what I've learned, Jiri Prochazka, he's been dealing with a bad shoulder for many years now. He actually mentioned that for like the last 5 years, shoulder pain has plagued him, and he's just kind of pushed through it, which is a terrible mistake, because at the end of the day, he tore it, right? That was the straw that broke the camel's back that pulled him out of his fight with Glover Teixeira, the rematch that we were looking forward to seeing. But the doctors were calling it one of the worst shoulder injuries they've ever seen. But that makes everyone think that, wow, Jiri Prochazka, you know, it's almost as if he's got his shoulder amputated or someone shot him in the shoulder. But it was just accumulative damage. That's what it was. It was the accumulative damage. And he's taken his time to rehabilitate his shoulder. And he doesn't strike me as someone that's going to rush his comeback. He doesn't strike me as a guy that's going to allow himself to fight when he's not going to show the best version of himself, when he's not going to be improved. He took his sweet, sweet time. Remember, he was supposed to come back to fight this summer against Jamal Hill. Jiri chose not to. He said, I got to have more time off. And I think that he's going to be better than ever, at least when it comes to his ability with his shoulder, his physicality. Okay? The ring rust could definitely play a part, but if you look at Jiri's career in the UFC, he's had a long layoff in between every single one of his fights. He fought Volkan Ozdemir, I think, in the summer of 2020. His next fight was spring 2021 against Dominic Reyes. After that, his next fight was the spring 2022 against Glover Teixeira, right? So it's basically now been a little bit longer than we're used to seeing him taking time off, but he always takes long layoffs. The only difference here is that a large part of the layoff this time, he wasn't able to train at full capacity because he was dealing with this shoulder injury, but he's rehabbed it very well. He's still 32, or I think actually he's 31, and he can recover pretty quickly. And again, we talk about Alex Pereira as being this like really big, physically imposing guy, and he still is. He still is big for 205. Jiri Prochazka is one of the most like physically strong and impressive athletes in 205, right? The way that he can cover distance when he moves, how explosive he is, right? His 80-inch reach. He's shredded. He's lean, dude. A lot of guys are just, you know, they're kind of big and sturdy, like the big plotter, Jan Blachowicz. But Jiri Prochazka is like a lean, shredded, explosive, physical specimen as well in the 205-pound division. That's probably just an inch shorter than Pereira. He still is a really big, imposing guy that actually has a slight reach advantage. And I think that Alex is not going to have the same ability to bully people around or to bully guys around like he did at 185, where his shots just have a greater impact because it's more of a sledgehammer down there. And Pereira still hits hard, but I don't know if it has the same impact on the bigger guys. He's moving up a weight class, 20 pounds bigger. I will say this about Alex. He looks leaner this time around, and I think that's just because he's taken more time away from 185 pounds, whereas the first fight that we saw him, which was only 3 months after Izzy, it was like a more bloated version of Alex. But the more time you allow your body weight to just settle into a higher weight zone, the more time you give yourself to fill out. Because think about all the strength and conditioning work he's doing at 185 pounds, even in the offseason where he's a little bit bigger than 185, or a little bit, I should say a lot. He's not able to allow himself to really grow that much because he's always cutting back down, right? He's always cutting back down. And he said that he didn't really bulk up a lot for his fight with Jan Blachowicz, that he was just not cutting as much weight. But now that he's still doing all the strength and conditioning, the only thing that we're not going to see is him cutting down. And when you cut down, you do deplete your muscle. You do lose a little bit of that strength. And you kind of have to rework your way back up. Now he's not reworking his way back up. He's just continuing to fill into this 205-pound frame. And because of that, he'll just add a little bit more muscle just by virtue of allowing himself to be at that weight and not have to worry about crashing the calories to move back down. So I think we'll see a leaner version of him, which means that he might be a little bit stronger, which means that he might hit a little bit harder this time. It's just that Jiri Prochazka can take a shot, and the left hook is something that people can eat from time to time. As I said, Pereira loves to sit into that left hook, to plant his feet, or he loves to back people up against the fence and pick them apart and go to the body and sneak that left hook in there. But I think that Jiri's going to be the one who's pressuring him back in this fight, throwing the kitchen sink at him, and just flustering him. And therefore, if Pereira is hitting him with left hooks, it's going to be like purely reactionary rather than I'm going to set this up, I'm going to time this, right? And so I think that Jiri will be able to eat the shots. I think that Yuri's going to get rocked in this fight. But if both guys are going to take a lot of punishment, I kind of like Jiri a little bit more because that's more suited to his style. Pereira's tough as fuck, right? So I'm going to say my official prediction, and I think Yuri's going to just knock him out up against the fence. That's my official prediction. I think he's going to knock him out up against the fence. In the third or fourth round, he's going to wear on Alex. And when Pereira's rocked, I think Yuri's going to catch him with like a knee right to the face. Maybe Pereira starts to dip his head down and Jiri comes up top with a knee. Or maybe hits him with an uppercut or an elbow. And I think we're going to see Pereira come crashing down, face plant, out cold, on the canvas. So that's my ultimate prediction for this fight. And we should also talk about the grappling a little bit because Jiri Prochazka has talked a lot about having a perfect performance. He wants to clean things up. He's disappointed every time he gets into one of these scraps. And I think that that could mean that he's working on his grappling. And one of the ways in which you can have a clean-looking performance against Pereira is by taking him down. Now, Alex has gotten way better at grappling. We saw that in the Blachowicz fight. Blachowicz was able to take him down. He fended off the submissions, and he was able to get up to his feet. He was able to stuff a lot of the takedowns. And on paper, Blachowicz seems to be the better grappler. I think that Jiri's a little bit underrated as a grappler, though. And I think he's a little bit more vicious as a grappler, right? I mean, I don't think people give him enough credit for reversing positions against a guy like Glover Teixeira or fending off submissions, right? Because there were moments in that fight where Glover was on top of him. For example, in the 5th round, even after Glover makes the mistake of pulling a guillotine when Jiri's out on his feet, essentially, they work their way back up to the feet. Glover takes him down again. And 2 minutes before the final bell, it's looking like Glover has the fight, which would have been 3-2 in my opinion. I think Jiri won 2 rounds of that fight. But Glover Teixeira is on top of Jiri. Jiri works his way back on top of Glover, reverses the position, and then ends up getting a submission. So he actually is always trying to finish the fight on the ground. He's always taking risks, and therefore he's a little bit more vicious. For example, Reyes pulled a guillotine against him. Reyes rocked Jiri Prochazka, stumbled him. Jiri shoots a takedown. Reyes pulls the guillotine. Jiri gets out of the guillotine, gets up kick KO'd for a second, but after that recovers and starts landing vicious ground and pound to the chin of Dominic Reyes, which softened him up before the KO because he got knocked out 15 seconds after those ground and pound shots on the feet. Jiri is a guy that's constantly striving for perfection. He's going to be working on his grappling, and that's going to be an element in this fight because if anyone's going to shoot a takedown, I think it's more likely that it's Jiri. And I think that if he does get a takedown in this fight, that's going to be a whole other ballgame for Pereira to worry about. Because right now he's expecting a war on the feet. And if he's already discombobulated on the feet, if he already has the kitchen sink coming in his direction, the takedown's going to be a whole other threat. And Jiri, I think he's going to struggle to take Pereira down. Pereira is not a fool. He knows that Jiri could probably go out there and do it. He will have great takedown defense. He's got these really strong hips. But it's just something that we could see happen, right? If Jiri gets rocked, we could see him shoot a takedown. I just got to go with Jiri. I can't unsee him winning this fight. I know that Pereira can kick the legs. I know that Jiri's really heavy on his front leg. And Yuri's going to be choosing to fight southpaw because that's, in my opinion, something that he also can do. He does switch his stance quite a bit. And southpaws have given Pereira an issue. Bruno Silva, who's listed at orthodox, actually fought Pereira in southpaw for a lot of their fight. Adesanya talked about how important it was for him to fight Alex southpaw because it's harder for him to set up that left hook. And even if Jiri does fight southpaw, Pereira can just chip away with the lead leg and get him to switch his stance back into orthodox. And if he can take Yuri's movement away from him, that will definitely help him in this fight because it'll make Yuri's downward pressure, the downhill fighting style where he's sprinting forward, it'll make it less explosive, and he'll have less of an ability to propel his strikes forward and have as much power on them. So Pereira can win this fight if he starts backing Jiri up. If he rocks Jiri, you don't want to get rocked by Alex because he's got such good precision and shot selection, right? If you're covering up to the chin, he's going to the body and you're going to bring your hands down and he's going up top with a head kick or whatever the hell it may be. He's so deadly accurate when people are hurt. So I'm fully aware that Alex can win this fight. I just think that the style that Jiri presents, the downhill fighting, okay, moving forward, 10-piece combinations, and when you're off the hook, he's still throwing at you. Body kicks, leg kicks, the long-rangey weapons. It's just so difficult for one of these orthodox strikers to deal with. And I haven't seen Pereira be able to make anyone pay when he's under fire, essentially. Whereas Dominic Reyes, when Jiri Prochazka is making him, back up and he's throwing combinations on him, Reyes is able to sting him back, and Reyes is actually kind of good at countering when he's under fire. Whereas Pereira, as I said, he kind of just backs up and looks to get out of range, and he does get hit while it's happening. He just covers up, and he's not able to plant his feet properly as well. So I think Yuri's going to finish him in this fight. I think it's going to be an absolute scrap, a war, and Yuri's going to win in this battle of attrition. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'm looking forward to this fight. I cannot wait. I love both of these fighters. They're two of my favorite fighters in the UFC, but I just can't choose Pereira just because it's the safe pick in most people's eyes, because I actually think that Yuri's going to have a bit of a difficult stylistic matchup for Pereira to work around in this fight, and it's going to make it really difficult for Pereira to do what he does best, which is settle in, make reads, have a clean-looking kickboxing fight, and it's not going to be clean. It's going to be dirty, and Jiri Prochazka is going to finish him and knock him out. Until next time.